What is up, everybody? My name is Adam, otherwise known as Young NBA Analyst. Before this video starts, as I always say, make sure you follow me on my Instagram at Young NBA Analyst. That's probably my main source of social media output. I post tons of daily content on there, so if you want daily content from me, seriously, go over to my Instagram, Young NBA Analyst, to follow over there. Also, be sure to subscribe to my podcast, because I always got that going. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about the Milwaukee Bucks regular season and whole playoff run. This entire historic season for them. It was absolutely amazing. If you remember back to my last video where I did my playoff bracket video, I predicted the Bucks to win and I turned out to be correct. So starting off, the Bucks had an amazing regular season, going 49-26 on the season, which was good enough for third in the East. And I'm not going to get into much of the regular season, just they finished third in the East, and their first matchup of the playoffs was, as we all know, the Miami Heat. There were actually a good amount of people who legitimately thought the Heat were going to win. But let's talk about it. So for starters, in game one, it was the first close game of the series. The game actually went to overtime, and the Bucks would actually take the overtime win with a Middleton game winner. That was a very fun game and very intense game to watch as well. And then the Bucks always went to game two, and they completely destroyed the Heat. It was a complete blowout win. Game three, the Bucks would also win, but they would also lose a super valuable player, Donte DiVincenzo. That was a big loss, and it really seemed like it at the time. Even though the Bucks still won the championship, they did lose a lot of perimeter defense, which was tough because they faced a lot of great perimeter talent, as well as rebounding and hustling, right? Like, Donte was a very valuable part of that team. However, I'm going to say this, okay? Don't think he had nothing to do with their championship run, because obviously he was great throughout the entire regular season to get them to where they were, that spot in the playoffs. Obviously, like, in the time that he played, he was great in those first two games, and the time that he played in game three, because he got injured in the middle of game three. So he did play a good role to help the Bucks beat the Heat in round one, spoiler alert. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm pretty much guaranteeing that he was a great off-court presence and locker room guy for motivating and inspiring his teammates. I'm sure that he helped out off the court as well. So yeah, he definitely had a great impact on this championship as well. But in terms of his on-court impact, they definitely lost. They definitely took a big hit losing DiVincenzo, but that didn't stop them from sweeping the Heat, as the Bucks would also take game four. So after the Heat series, the Bucks advanced to the second round to face arguably their toughest match of the entire playoffs, the Brooklyn Nets. Like, listen, those first two games were terrible for the Bucks, and many people counted them out because the Nets were straight up dominant in those first two games. But the Bucks went back home and they won game 3 and 4 to tie the series. Game 3 especially was super close, and the Bucks comfortably won game 4. The Nets would take game 5 with a historically good performance from Kevin Durant. The Bucks would go back home and win game 6. And finally in game 7, in overtime, the Bucks would take the series. It was legendary. Both Giannis and Kevin Durant had a legendary performance, and the Nets were literally inches away from winning because the game-winning shot by Kevin Durant, his foot was just on the line. Literally just. They were inches away from it being a three-pointer, and that would have meant that they would have likely won the game. But the Bucks ended up winning the series, and they would advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. And in the Eastern Conference Finals, they would face off against the Atlanta Hawks. In game 1, the Bucks had a tough loss, close game, and they lost their only home game of the entire playoffs. So the Bucks would lose game 1, but then the Bucks would come back and have a great game 2, and they would take game 2. Going over to game 3, the game was close, and Middleton had the clutch performance of his life. He absolutely took over in the last few minutes of the fourth quarter, and the Bucks would take game 3. And this is the point where I have to talk about two things. One, Middleton has insane inconsistency. He's the type of guy to drop 40 in a game, and then the next game he's going to drop 12. But then he has another great game dropping like 30, and he's going to drop like 15, and he's going to be like 20, and then, I don't know, maybe like 11. He's like arguably the most inconsistent star in the NBA, and I'd probably say he is the most inconsistent star in the NBA. It's just interesting because his game is built for someone to be consistent, like an efficient three-level scorer. I don't know what it is. Part of it's coaching, but part of it's just Middleton just happens to be a very inconsistent player. it is what it is. And the second thing I'm going to talk about here is the narrative. So Kendrick Perkins around this time put out a tweet basically saying that, like, after Middleton's incredible clutch performance, which, by the way, Middleton stepped up tons of times in the clutch as the Bucks' main closer, and like his impact in the clutch was definitely important for them winning the championship. However, Kendrick Perkins got a little out of hand because he said that Chris Middleton was the Batman of the team and Giannis was the Robin, essentially saying that, like, in that duo of Middleton and Giannis, Middleton's the number one option on that team and Giannis was the second team, strictly because Middleton could close out games. But how? That's not correct. Anyone with common sense knows that Giannis is the best player in that team and Middleton is the second option. It doesn't necessarily matter who's the closer. Now, in most cases, the closer is the best player on the team, but keyword, in most cases. Okay, Giannis is much more dominant, and he's just a better player overall. Like, I shouldn't have to explain it. He's a former 2-time MVP, and he's like 26, just entering his prime. I shouldn't even have to explain this. Okay, Giannis is the best player on the team. Middleton's not the Batman. Middleton's the Robin. Giannis is the Batman. I just needed to talk about that. So in Game 4, the Bucks would end up losing, and they would actually lose Giannis to injury. Luckily for them, it wasn't that serious. He was out for the rest of the Hawks series, but he would be able to get back for the finals. And in the last two games of the series, the Bucks would win Game 5 with a monster performance from Brook Lopez, and they would also take Game 6, advancing to the NBA Finals. And in the NBA Finals, which just ended a couple days ago, they faced off against the mighty Phoenix Suns. And in the first two games, the Suns were definitely looking mighty. The Suns would take a quick 2-0 series lead, and a lot of people counted them out, just like versus the Nets. But if this playoffs taught us anything, is that you don't count a team out after 2 games. Okay, the Bucks were also a great example. The Bucks were a great example of this, and the Clippers were probably the best example of this, because in every series they played, if I'm not mistaken, they went down 0-2, and they made it to the Western Conference Finals. So don't count out a team after they go down 0-2, because the Bucks would come back, they would win Game 3 and Game 4 to tie up the series, moving to Game 5, where it was super intense, and the Bucks got the only road win of that series, because again, like, you have to understand that the Bucks were amazing at home and usually not very good away. But in Game 5, super intense game, but the Bucks ended up winning it off a clutch steal from Jrue Holiday and the lob to Giannis. Probably one of the best plays I've ever seen, because Devin Booker at the end, Jrue Holiday comes in, gets a steal, goes down the court, throws the great lob to Giannis, and they end up winning that game. Legendary performance. And then in Game 6 was just as legendary, as Giannis went amazing. This man dropped 50 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 blocks in Game 6, the deciding game of the series. And the Bucks would end up winning the 2021 NBA Championship, and of course Giannis won the Finals MVP, well deserving, as in Games 1 and 2 Giannis also dropped 40. It was Game 2 and 3, my bad. Giannis dropped 40, and throughout the whole playoffs Giannis was just dominant, but he really stepped up in that Finals and really surprised many people, shut down so many narratives about him, proved so many haters wrong. It was incredible. One of the biggest recurring themes for the Bucks throughout the entire playoffs was their insanely inconsistent offense from many people, most notably Chris Middleton and Jrue Holiday. But the Bucks really stuck through on defense. You know the phrase defense wins championships? That couldn't be more true with this Bucks team, because they were super inconsistent on offense, right? We all know that very well. But which was for many reasons, coaching and just their overall offensive schemes. They didn't really have the most consistent offensive players on the team, but man, they always locked in on defense. I mean, of course, you got Giannis, who's the main anchor, who is arguably the best help defender in the NBA, former Defensive Player of the Year, well deserved. And then of course you have Jrue Holiday, who is one of the best defenders in the NBA and has an argument for best perimeter defender in the NBA. Those two pretty much lead the defense, but they also have many solid defenders on the team, and the Bucks won this championship with their defense. Their defense was absolutely incredible throughout the entire playoffs. Defense wins championships. Another big theme of this playoffs was injuries. Many stars got injured, and a lot of people are saying that this playoff has an asterisk, or it's a Mickey Mouse playoff run or whatever. But I mean, at this point, you can't really say it about the Bucks, because the Bucks also did lose Giannis like for a short period of time in the Eastern Conference Finals, and of course, they didn't have one of their key players in Dante DiVincenzo. The Bucks also dealt with injuries. And just to talk about the entire roster as a whole, obviously, you got the big three. You have Giannis, the most dominant player in the NBA. I mean, this was really legacy changing for him. It's his first ring, right? He just shut down so many narratives. Finals MVP. Like, at the age of 26, he's already a 2-time MVP, champion, Finals MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved Player, like 5-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, 4-time All-Defense, pretty sure. Like, that's already a super deep career resume. At this point, he's guaranteed to make the Hall of Fame. Of course, you have Chris Middleton, efficient three-level scorer, inconsistent, but I mean, hey, he was super valuable in the clutch. Drew Holiday, which really made the difference for them, because Drew Holiday, being the main facilitator of the team, allowed Giannis to play more off ball, which definitely proved to be very valuable in this series. And not just on offense, Drew Holiday's main value came on defense. As I mentioned earlier, he has an argument for being the best perimeter defender in the NBA. He is outright amazing. You also have PJ Tucker, who really brought like amazing energy and hustle to the table. And his rebounding was also amazing, mainly on the offensive glass. Like, PJ Tucker's offensive rebounding was absolutely amazing throughout these playoffs, and it was definitely super valuable. Obviously, you had Brook Lopez, who had great and timely games here and there. He was a pretty solid big. Obviously, he was exploited a lot on the pick and roll, because they faced many great pick and roll duos, most notably being Trey and Capella, and the more dangerous one, Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton. He was exploited a lot, but it didn't end up being a killer for the Bucks, as the Bucks obviously still won the championship. You also got Bobby Portis, who brings incredible energy on both ends and literally became a fan favorite. Like, during the championship celebration, during the parade, you hear the chants, Bobby, Bobby, Bobby. He just became a fan favorite. And it makes sense, because his energy is just incredible. And finally, you have Pat Connaughton, who stepped up huge. He was just kind of like a solid bench player throughout the regular season, but without Dante, Pat Connaughton, as well as PJ Tucker, stepped up to kind of fill in the gaps that were left by that. I mean, his three-point shooting was amazing. Connaughton was also a phenomenal rebounder. His defense was very impressive, and he was also hustling a lot. He stepped up big time, and I'm very impressed with what I saw from Pat Connaughton. Man, this playoff run was flat out legendary, and the Milwaukee Bucks are your 2021 NBA champions. With that being said, that'll wrap up today's video. Make sure you guys subscribe and turn on those post notifications so you don't miss any of my future videos. So make sure you leave a like, leave a comment, and let me know what you think. And with that being said, always remember, clutchness forever.